So this is the Airfloss, Sonicare Air-floss, I suppose you call it a dental pump, whatever it is between your teeth, a flosser, a type of flosser. So this is really tricky to get apart. This is the case, and to get it off you can jostle it, but ultimately you've kind of got to crack it from one end. You literally got to put a lot of pressure on. I think it was from that end I did it, but as a result you can see it split the tube. I think it split it there, probably it was due to split anyway. You can see I've got to put a new bit of silicone tubing in there, and it was also this wire that goes through here is putting pressure and reducing the flow through into the pump. This bit comes off, it sort of sits in there. I'll just get my camera. It goes into the bottom of the reservoir up there, so you need to empty your reservoir first. Apart from that, it looks alright. You know, just the main circuit board, the induction coil at the bottom, the main motor and everything looks okay. You just stop working, you put power on and then press the button at the top to release the fluid, and it just cuts out, which tells me that the battery must have come to the end of life. The battery sits up here, and I'll take it out in a minute, but you've got to jostle away at this unit here, and then the battery's held on by two bits of tape, a bit like mobile phones. So once I get that out, I'll disconnect the battery, I'll get a new one, and I'll solder in a new battery. Okay, so you start pulling this bit out and it will come out fairly straightforward, and you can kind of see the battery there and the two bits of tape holding it in. So you've kind of just got to get your fingers into the battery and the wire and jostle it out. Right, so I used one of these little wedge type things you use for phones, and you can kind of stick it just behind where the circuit is. I mean, because you're going to replace this battery anyway, and once you've sort of dug it in, you can pull it, you start to pull it or lever it out, and you can see there's two bits of tape, and then the whole thing comes out. It's pretty straightforward. The rest of it is just soldering a new battery really. Okay, so first mistake, and I haven't seen this anywhere on the internet videos, this wire needs to be desoldered down here first, because it connects in there, and of course you snap it off. You can't actually get to this, you know, it's the power button effectively, or the selector button at the top. You can't get to those two screws to take that out. So you basically have to desolder it from here, otherwise you're going to snap the end off. It's not a big deal. It means I'm going to have to solder the, you know, trim these back a bit, solder back into this circuit board. Well, it's just be a on-off circuit board at the top there. Apart from that, not much to say. There's a couple of seals at the end where the motor, you know, goes up into, the pump element goes up into, and the tank here, and that's it. Anyway, I'll post a video when it's right then. How's about this? So, I've got my chest-mounted camera on. What a palaver that was to fit that. I don't know. Right, I had a spare battery. It's obviously not going to fit in because it's, you know, it's not the original, but I had one spare for testing. It's 3.7 volt, 1500 milliamps, so way beyond what this thing needs. And I've I basically repaired the switch where I snapped off the wires up here. This thing's just held on with a bit of sticky kind of tape, thickish, rubberish tape, but that should go on alright. This is just an on-off switch, so it doesn't really matter what there's no polarity, even though it shows a red wire here. Well, red-ish looking orangish wire. It connects onto the circuit board, and this basically just said, I think there's a little, just about read it. It says ACT, activate, I guess that stands for. So I've just soldered onto that, and then I just soldered onto the top of these two. Now you can use a solder sucker if you want, because maybe, you know, I've got one of these little solder suckers, I've had it for a while. You know, you just punch this down, press the button, release it. That helps you get all the excess solder out. So you just have to be a bit careful. It is marked battery negative, battery positive. Just be careful when you're fitting your new battery. These are LiPos, lithium polymers. Do not short circuit them because they will catch fire. They get hot really quickly because they discharge really quickly. So be very careful when you're putting your new battery on. These will usually be taped up with a bit of masking tape or something. Just don't go and short circuit these, and be very careful if you're not used to soldering to bridge those two points together. So you're going to have to use a decent tip on your soldering iron, and to tin it beforehand. And tinning simply means you put a bit of solder onto the end, you clean it on the end, usually with a bit of sponge, bit of wet sponge. It normally comes with the solder, and just make it in right position and put that on there. Anyway, then all you got to do is switch it on. Yeah. Now I haven't got any fluid in there, so I'm not too worried. And then hit the switch, and you can hear it go. There you go. It's a meaty little thing. You can see here's the pump action here. Look. Yep. And that's all there is to it. So it proves it works. So all I've got to do now is find a replacement battery. I'll finish the rest of the video off later. So I told you I had to take off this piece here, but to get that off, obviously you've got to take the whole assembly out to get the two screws in there, and then they just sit in that little rubber, you know, grommet-y type thing, and that's where the switch comes through. And you see I've lost a bit of sticky tape off, double-sided sticky tape, but I'll figure a way to get that back in there. But that's it. It's not too bad to get apart. Only mistake I made was not desoldering the cable, as I mentioned earlier, off the circuit board, and it basically pulled out from the bottom of the activating switch that sits here, but that was easy enough to fix. And I used this thing to gently get into the battery and ease it down. But be careful with something like this, because you don't want to go too hard at it, because you could end up puncturing the battery. Although they've got a big sort of aluminium soft clad bit over the battery, you do not want to be bending LiPos or damaging them, because again they can catch fire. They can basically, well, certainly bulge out. They may even catch fire. But that bit's straightforward. This one's a little bit of super glue around the top. I really need to get a new one of these, because it was obviously breaking away from here and losing a bit of pressure out the head. And this thing comes away as soon as you've left taken the two screws out. That comes away, and then you're able to get under here. And it's just a matter of getting this or a sharpish screwdriver and getting under there, gradually prising the switch, the contact switch out, and then you've just got your battery. So I'll try and source one of these on the internet. They're a bit hard to find because they're quite thin. That's the problem with these. Is they're quite a thin battery, and then yeah, we'll see if I can get one of these and cheap enough and get it replaced. All right, and when it's all done, I'll put another video up when it's complete. But you can see how it works. It's pretty straightforward. As far as Philips making something like this, whereas you can't swap a battery out, well, it's shameful really, because it's a good machine. And there's no reason on their website it says you can't work on them, you can't replace them. Well, that's not true. You can replace them, but obviously you have to be a bit of a handy person. But they should really make these swappable, and I hope Philips listen to this video and learn from lessons, because not what with new environmental laws coming out, you can't go making stuff that you throw into a dumpster and ends up contaminating landfill. It's not, these things are full of plastic. It's not, and they're full of metal and all sorts. So this is not a thing really that you shouldn't be able to repair. And I know Apple's been guilty of this as well with their iPhones. They've been making them harder and harder to take apart. And now the law's coming firmly on our side, as you know, maker type people who tend to, you know, repair stuff. And I think it's time for these manufacturers to listen up and make products that are repairable. Anyway, best of luck. Catch you later.